Hello everyone, I'm your host Julia and welcome to the Potomac View. In this show, we aim to share news and stories that have either been heavily suppressed by the Chinese government or distorted by the mainstream media. Our goal is to shine a unique light on the truth behind everything we hear from the news outlets about China and help you, our audience, to form your own opinions. In this episode, we are going to focus on the most recent anti-lockdown protests across mainland China. It is becoming more and more clear that the zero COVID policy isn't about COVID anymore, but more about Xi Jinping's political tool to safeguard his authority, eliminate his political opponents, and ultimately enslave the Chinese citizens. You may have heard about the catastrophe in Urumqi, the capital of Xinjiang in the far western region of China. 44 innocent people were brutally injured and killed due to the fire caused by the extreme COVID policy, adopted by the Chinese Communist Party. The fire broke out in high-rise residential building, which started on the 15th floor and spread to the 17th floor. Strangely, it took roughly 3 hours to put out the fire. The fire trucks couldn't have access to the building due to the lanes being parked by cars. The parked cars have been at the same spot for nearly 4 months, as their owners have been locked inside their homes for 109 days. Which is the longest and most severe lockdowns in China and the world. Also, some residents were unable to escape because of the blocked emergency routes and locked gates, causing a tragedy. The authorities, as usual, covered the truth of the incident by claiming the death toll to be 10 only instead of 44. The tragedy has aroused national indignation. People in major cities have taken to the streets to voice their grievances. They risked their livelihood to openly oppose the government's policy of zero tolerance for COVID. They were chanting, "End the lockdown! Without freedom, we would rather die," and even "Step down Xi Jinping" and "Step down the CCP," which is the first time that the Chinese citizens dared to use such slogans in mainland China. The protests have been spreading across the country like an unstoppable fire, and the revolution has been dubbed as the Fire Revolution. Some predicted these events are a game changer for Chinese democratic future. The protests have been reported in at least 10 cities around China, including Beijing, Shanghai, Chengdu, Wuhan, Nanjing, Lanzhou, and Guangzhou. Students at many universities in the country have also joined the protests. Additionally, there have been gatherings outside Chinese embassies overseas in Europe and North America. The desire for truth, democracy, and freedom from the Chinese people has amplified with the help of the whistleblower movement. In the past 5 years, over 500,000 people around the world, not only Chinese, but also people from the Western countries, have joined the whistleblowers movement. With Xi's tightening of the zero COVID policy, many Chinese laobaixing, commoners, have been suffering greatly as they were forced to be taken into quarantine centers, square cabins. They were enduring the inhuman living conditions and infection of the COVID virus. Lanzhou square cabin caught fire, and the news immediately spread across the internet, and more people have woken up. It turned out that the best way to deal with tyranny like the square cabins is to set them on fire. Countless concentration camps built up by the Chinese Communist Party can be turned into ashes with just a match. Since then, explosions have occurred everywhere, especially in the square cabins. Besides fire, the widespread protests had another interesting element. Some protesters were holding blank sheets of white paper, as a symbol of defiance to the extreme zero-COVID policy and harsh lockdowns. The white paper movement is sweeping the nation. You might ask, why blank white paper? What does it symbolize? In fact, the term white paper protest originated from a Soviet joke about a Soviet secret police officer who saw a man handing out white paper on the street and immediately arrested him. The arrested man believed the paper he was handing out didn't indicate anything, but the secret police officer responded, "Do you think I don't know what you want to write on it?" Sadly and ironically, however, such jokes are repeated in the supposedly modern and civilized world. The white paper was also used by the pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong during the anti-extradition law amendment bill movement in 2019. Demonstrations against the invasion of Ukraine in Russia in 2022 used similar tactics as well. During the current protests, one protester said, "The white paper represents everything we want to say, but cannot be said." There was definitely nothing on the paper, but we all know what's on there, one protester in Shanghai told the BBC in China. Public dissent is often quickly suppressed. Protesters standing in silence with blank paper pose a more subtle challenge to the totalitarian authorities, which is indeed the most blunt and creative format of protest. On December 6, Mr. Guo Wengui disclosed that Xi Jinping believed that the white paper movement had exacerbated the internal chaos and weakened the foundation of the Communist Party. He allegedly had given a harsh order within the party to identify all the coordinators and the participants of the white paper movement before the Chinese New Year, with no one to be spared. As of that day, excluding the released people, the country has arrested and imprisoned 25,000 people. This is comparable to the persecution of the Tiananmen student movement participations. We hope that those who are arrested and imprisoned will survive from this crisis, and that the white paper movement will become the fuel for the fire revolution, so that the passion for individual liberty and the power against the tyranny will continue to spread across the country, and the Communist Party of China, which is on the verge of collapse, will speed up its inevitable demise. Thank you for watching. We look forward to seeing you next time.